Steven, it's a new year, it's 2022, and I've got a big, fat, juicy wish that it's going to be a year full of fulfillment here on You Can't Disappoint a Podcast. What do you think?
I've got a big old sauce-drenched wish myself, just slapped on my plate here in front of me, and I'm going to dig in to a whole nother year of You Can't Disappoint a Podcast.
It's going to be a big year full of winding down our rewatch of Community and moving on to whatever comes next for us, and to be a part of it with us. There's so many ways to show your support.
We've got a big old warm pool here for you. Come on and slip on your skivvies and slide down the ladder and dive in. How can they get in this pool, Zach?
If you put your toe in the water and it feels fine and you want to get waist deep, come join us on Patreon, patreon.com/can'tdisappointpodcast. It's the way to support this show and to help us move it forward as we move into the future. It's also the way to get more of us every week with our live pre-show every week, You Can't Dis a Pre-Show, and all kinds of Patreon exclusive content coming all the time, Steven.
We'd love for you to support us on Patreon, but you can also hang out with us free of charge over on Twitter at You Can't Dis a Pod. We are also on Instagram at Can't Disappoint Podcast, and we're on Facebook and YouTube under the whole name of the show, You Can't Disappoint a Podcast.
Also, if you would like to be a part of the show every week, you can email us at can'tdisappointpodcast@gmail.com. To be a part of next week's podcast, write us in your trivia, your favorite funny moment, and your episode MVP for next week's episode of Community, and we'll read it out loud on the show.
If you like what we do here, leave a review wherever you leave reviews about podcasts.
Yeah, maybe like the Sharper Image product review site. Leave us a review there.
There's like a box full of sticky notes at my post office. Write a review and leave it there.
I hope you guys are jumping on board with us and you're ready to traverse 2022 with me and Steven. What do you say? Let's rip our way into another episode of You Can't Disappoint a Podcast.
Cannonball!
I'll put like a big splat.
Yeah!
We've made it. We've reached the end of another season, Steven. Here we are. You ready to just give yourself a little pat on the back?
Oh, I'll
keep that
pat my
shoulder
back.
warm.
Ooh. Oh, yeah.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to You Can't Disappoint a Podcast, our final podcast of Season 5 before we dive into the final season of Community. Hi, everybody. I'm Zach, and this is a roundtable, so I didn't think about a way to introduce myself.
I'm Steven, and the only round table I know is the one with King Arthur, so I better see an Excalibur by the end of this one. Hey-yo.
And, I think you might if you rub your hilt the right way. I want us to get right into it because we've got a stuffed roundtable talking about the best and worst and all the in-between of Season 5 with some really great community voices that we've met over the last couple years. But a couple of pieces of housekeeping before we get into it.
Housekeeping.
Couple of things before we get into a big piece of news. Right quick. Not now. I'm masturbating and watching the Home Shopping Network.
I'll come back later. Do you need towels?
A shit ton of towels. Bring me a shit ton of towels.
You got it.
Flip It or Flop It is going to be on any second. I need so many towels. Anyway, welcome to the show, everyone. Let's start off the program by shouting out our $10 and up patrons over at patreon.com/can'tdisappointpodcast. That's Danny M. Lugo, Mary Baker Budisa, Brian Thurman, Taylor Ace, and Planeswalker Prez. Go ahead and check us out over there to get Brokeback Bebop, You Can't Dis a Pre-Show, early access of this show every week, and maybe get your name added to that little list o' love along with all those other people.
I like that. I like calling it a list o' love. I was thinking, are they the knights of our round table?
Yeah.
Or no, because they're not here.
No, they're not.
Oh. Sorry, guys.
We
Better luck
people
next
that
time.
that don't put money into helping us move forward. I also want to shout out, I guess briefly, our community papa at Communiess on Twitter. You're about to hear tons of us just ramming daddy with everything we can get our hands on.
You know, I remember the first time Daddy put a sprocket in my hands and said, "Son, this is what a sprocket does," and proceeded to explain it to me.
I remember when I first thought to myself, is that a wocket in my pocket? And no, it's my community daddy at Communiess. I don't know. I'm tired. Okay, but what I wanted to say before we get into the roundtable, which we will in just a moment, is a little piece of news about the future of this little program that we all love so dearly.
News flash.
So we've only got 13 episodes of Community left, which is daunting and a little depressing because we've been doing this for a while, and it'll be exciting to do something else, but it's a new world for us to fall into, right?
Yeah.
It's taken away some of the training wheels once Community is done.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna be off in unguarded waters, without our little floaties. It's just gonna be us paddling along.
Yes, but we want your help to help push our paddle. Right?
Oh yeah.
I guess you paddle a paddle. You don't push.
Help paddle our push. There we go.
Well, so this podcast will be continuing weekly through the end of 2022. We're going to go through season 6 of Community, and then we have some fun things planned to keep going out weekly throughout the end of the year. Before we put this one away, I'm sure we'll still update this one infrequently, but we'll put this one away at the end of the year and move on to a new project, a new podcast, a new weekly episode-by-episode rewatch podcast. And Steven and I, over the last couple of months, we keep saying, we should do this show. We should do this show. We should do this show. And it's gotten to the point where there's 4 that we agree on pretty well that any of the 4, we'd be more than happy with signing on to doing a full podcast about each one. And instead of deciding, we're going to let you guys help us decide as we wrap up Community. The people that were in from the ground floor on the original Community podcast will help have a say in what comes next for You Can't Disappoint a Podcast. So we've got these 4 shows that we're deciding between for the next podcast. And throughout season 6 of Community, after every 3 episodes, we're going to take a week off and highlight one of those 4 shows. We'll talk about an episode of the show. We'll talk about what we think our version of a podcast about that show would be like. And at the end of season 6 of Community, we're going to let you guys vote for what show we should do next. I've been calling it in my head America's Next Top Zach and Steven Rewatch Podcast.
All stars.
TM. So stay tuned. Over season 6 of Community, we're still going to be diving as deep into that as we have the rest of Community. But these shows will be showing up every 3rd episode of Community to give a little taste of what might be coming next and to show how you can have a say in it.
I think it's going to be super fun. I'm excited about it. I hope you guys get excited about it too. I mean, we're sad to see the other end of this Community rainbow that we've been just grinding along.
I remember a time when it just wasn't a given that we would get to the end of Community.
Yeah.
Let alone be at the end of Community and making our next plans.
It's crazy.
Yeah. But we've still got some fun stuff before that, starting right now with our Season 5 Roundtable with 3 of our great Community content friends. I think it's time to get into it. It's a stuffed one, so let's get stuffed.
Huzzah!
Hi, everybody. I'm excited to be joined by a group of lovely Community podcasters, some familiar faces on this show, some new to this show, and we're here to talk about Season 5 as we wrap it up before we move on to the final season, which is just wild that we're already about to start the final season. How crazy.
What a twisted, long, winding web that we've roaded, Zachary.
Mm-hmm. Roaded?
Roaded. We've webbed the road. Roaded.
Okay, well, let's step past that and kick it off with we've got
It's a literary reference, Zachary.
Steven, let's introduce our friend. We get it. We've got Jillian.
We get it. You didn't read that particular book.
Hi. Guys.
We're glad to have
Hi.
you. We've hung out a bunch of times before, but this is your first time on the podcast proper.
It is.
Well,
and
it is.
I thought it was cool because you guys are on season 5 too, so I thought it was good timing.
We were briefly ahead of you, but then between Michael and Sadia both having lives outside of recording this podcast, we are now a week behind you.
Yep, this is all we do. We don't have anything else going on, just the show.
I was just saying, Michael's in rehearsal right now, for everything. So it's been okay, we can't record any of these nights. But yeah, so I'm glad we're right around the same time. It's really cool. Matt gets to listen to all of our different perspectives.
Gets to or elects to, I don't know. Chooses to.
I do. I do.
Well, then that's a good segue. We'll go over to Matt. If you listen to our show, you know Matt. He's one of the people behind the Communities account on Twitter. Obviously, we're big fans of the community people, the Communities people around here, Stephen, aren't we?
Yeah, the father from which we sprung from his heart those many moons ago.
No.
Yeah.
Under that
Never.
poetic evening.
No pressure there.
Not at all.
We're here just days after having a lovely Father's Day frolic through the most beautiful tulip field.
I put together a beautiful picnic, but he didn't eat one bite. I don't know what was up. He just kept saying, please let me go home to my wife.
I think you need to remember
We
that
sure
I
all
was
did end up
nowhere
covered in
near
picnic
there.
condiments, though, didn't we?
We did.
A good time.
I don't even think I've talked to Steven's mom via Zoom at this point. And
The future is now. It doesn't take much.
So, Matt, how's your community podcast going? What's going
don't know.
on? In your show?
I thankfully don't have a podcast. I did recently interview Jay Chandrasekhar with Dan, who you'll talk to next, and we put that on Six's podcast because we asked in advance to make sure I had a place to put it. But I don't do that. We did just cross 25,000 followers.
Wow.
That's incredible. And what was the growth like just since the, pandemic reawakening of community fans?
We were mid 5,000s on the 10th anniversary, which was September 2019.
Wow. That's
And
insane.
So, and that's when I started helping. So I take credit for 20,000 people.
That was you.
That's when the golden age
It's
really
not
started.
true, but
Humble brag.
I completely take credit for 20,000 people.
All the
Look,
humble brags in
you
that. We got I talked to Jay Chandrasekhar in there. We got how many followers in there.
You do a lot of work with it. So,
Yes.
I mean, look, you try and say it's not you.
This is
look,
my hobby.
Other people are behind this. Other people are behind that account too. But you do a lot of work
Yeah,
with
well,
it.
Kevin's been really busy. He's the most recent admin.
Yeah.
I think he's done like 5 tweets. And Mike's
That's more than I've done for our Twitter account. So he's got me blown out of the water.
And Mike, who's the elder statesman of the admins, he's currently buying a business and busy
Cool.
as he can be. So
Yeah.
Communities LLC.
no,
He's taking the corporate world by storm.
he has a real world life where
Huh.
he is an excellent electrician and he's buying a company, and so he's busy.
None of the rest of us do.
No.
We are.
And that you're hearing is our new friend Dan Nye, who's part of the Apartment 303 podcast. First
Yes.
time that we're having a conversation where I don't really know you. You're here. You've been vetted by
Welcome.
Matt, who we trust very
I have,
much. We're glad to
yes.
have you. Tell us a
I-
little bit about you and the show you're on.
Well, I was lucky enough that I messaged Matt and I was like, hey, if you need help with that Jay Chandrasekhar interview, who's now our very good, close, and personal friend. So I will,
That's what I
will
tell
go
everybody.
ahead and
Yeah,
go
he'll be
past
here
that.
any minute.
Yeah, right. He's on his way. You
Yeah.
can just leave him in the waiting room. I mean, it's fine.
It's getting a little annoying. It's a little high maintenance.
It was one of those things. I told Matt, I'm like, if you need help, I'm here to help. And it wound up working out because my schedule is one of the ones that's so variable and flexible. And he was like, yeah, a couple days before, like, this is the potential time. If you can help, go ahead. And I was like, yes. And I told Matt after it happened, I literally sat in this chair for about like 20 minutes, just not really doing anything. Like, are we full? What's this podcast rating? How much can I swear?
As much
We
as you
bleep
want.
out the word, but you can say
Okay.
whatever you want.
Okay, we bleep out the F word, but I was like,
You
did
can
that
say
just
it.
happen happen? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll give less editing because I don't like doing posts, so I don't want to put it on other people.
Anytime you don't swear, I will. So we'll just.
Okay, so it's almost more effort.
Yeah.
Because then you have to go find mine and then his. So, but I sat here and I was like, that just fucking happened, and I had to like kind of force myself to start moving again because it was like he was so nice, he was so candid. It was almost an hour and a half long conversation.
Wow.
And like
terrific.
we went over his entire career. We talked a lot about community. We talked about his new app that he's doing. Like it was just. He was so down to talk about whatever, and we were like, is there anything we can't talk about? And he was like, no. He's like, I'm here, whatever I say goes. And we're like, cool, let's do it.
Well, I
And
heard
then-
there was some good Chevy Chase tidbits. There was some good Pierce stuff.
Yeah, there's you didn't clip it out, did you, Matt? I know you were talking
I
about
clipped
doing
it out somewhere. Yeah,
Okay.
Jay basically gave us a first-hand account
Yeah.
of Chevy's last day on set.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was not anything we've heard before.
Yeah.
It fit with a lot of the stuff we'd heard, but it was it's not just first person. He's literally Chevy's
He was
yelling
the
at
director.
him,
Yeah.
kind of around him, but yelling at his face all of
And
his
everyone
problems.
else is so tight-lipped about it, but Jay was like, I don't know, let's talk
Jay's
about
like,
it.
yeah, Jay was like, I don't care. We're in a good place, and that was his point. He said that him and Chevy were in a
Multiple
great
times,
place now, so he could say whatever he wanted to about the past. And I was like,
That's awesome.
okay.
So
And
if
if
you are
anybody,
looking for that hot gossip about Chevy Chase's exit,
Right?
that's in
Wow,
six
yeah.
seasons of that's on 6 seasons in a podcast.
That's
feed.
what I
Yeah.
want to say. I wanted to plug. People can listen to that on 6 seasons in a podcast. I'm talking
It
to
should
Jay.
be up to. I know Dave was asking it. It'll probably come out on Apartment 303 as well at some point soon.
Yeah. I've
Nice.
sent him the file, so it's
Yeah.
just when he
It'll
gets
come
a
out there
chance.
soon too. We just did like an extended bracketology about relationships in different like quadrants for the show. So we had like romantic, we had oddball, we had friendship, and we just wrapped up those. So
Oh, that's cool.
That's
Yeah.
fun.
yeah, so we just did those for brackets. That's the nice thing is when Dave approached me, he's like, I kind of want to talk. We have so many shows that are like recaps and rewatches. He's like, I want to talk about like kind of bigger themes and things around the show. And if we kind of go into separate places, that cool. So be it. If not, as long as it's rooted in the show. And I'm like, I'm down. So we've
That's
been
awesome.
doing nothing but that so far. So
Oh,
Super
that's
fun. I
Mm-hmm.
like it.
Apartment 303 is the one thematic podcast. Everybody else is doing episodes or interviews or something. And,
Yep.
yeah, they have fun with it.
we do.
Well, let's move on to talking about season 5. I'm really excited about it. When season 5 aired, I think I was a junior in high school, and I was really, obsessed with the show.
My arthritis just kicked up here in the
I had mine surgically removed since that happened.
Matt, what year high school were you in around season 5? We're talking senior year.
Oh, God bless you. No, I had, because it was what? When did it air? Or
2013, 14?
Yeah,
13?
13, 14.
I was out of college for 5 years at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. That's. I was married. Like, I had. Like,
Were you all watching the show live at that point? What were you thinking as season 5 aired?
I was watching it live.
Oh, yeah,
we
absolutely.
Well, I know Matt was.
I started watching it live during season 2. Whenever season 5 came on, I don't know, man. We fought for the show so hard that like I was just grateful that it was still on. So I don't think I like had any very critical, visceral reaction to a lot of things. I was just like, yes, we get it. I'm good. I have more.
I relate to that a lot. It's a little bit hard for me to judge this season because I hold it a little bit closer to my heart than the other seasons, just because it existing, and I don't know whether or not you're a Dan Harmon stan. You know, I think I appreciate him without being, I don't know, swooned. I don't know the right way to put it. We see both sides of Dan is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say. This season was really great, and it was really an anomaly that it even existed in the first place.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. It's the Communities account started after season 4. So if you go back and look at the dates,
Wow.
it doesn't actually form until the end of season 4 as a way to help promote and coordinate people for season 5.
Oh, wow.
So it's ridiculously weird. Yes, 9 years old. No, I was happy to see it because it was off in season 4. You could tell it was off in season 4 if you knew it from before. And Dan coming back was a big deal. Nobody had ever done that. We found out that it was Joel that led the charge to make that happen. It's like if you bring it back, this free publicity, people will talk about it because nobody does this. And so it was mostly Joel making the effort to get the suits involved to get them to come back. But yeah, he's the only showrunner to ever come back. And when he came back, Rob Schrab said he's the most powerful showrunner in television because he doesn't care.
Yeah.
Insane.
I've been fired before. I'll do it again.
That puts Community in the history books forever. Is that true that it's the only show ever to
Only
lose
one that
a
I know of, yeah.
showrunner
Did
and then
Aaron
bring them back?
Sorkin?
Wow.
Aaron Sorkin, did he come back towards the end of West Wing? Sorry.
I don't know.
I mean, that's probably.
But I mean,
the
it's not like he
closest
got
you could do.
Fired
Yeah.
from the West Wing and
Yeah.
then came back.
If he left as a show. Oh,
Did he?
there's some history
I don't
there.
know the West Wing. I just spoke out
Aaron
of my
Sorkin was very much. It might have been a disgraceful self exit.
Oh, I didn't know that.
there's a whole lot of stuff. Yeah.
A dishonorable discharge. If
Yeah.
you will.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of things involved. Sorry, this is not a West Wing podcast, but I do think
It
he comes
could
back towards
be.
the
You
end.
never
but I'm
know
not
where
sure.
we're going to end up.
I could be wrong. He might not be involved at the end at all, but yeah.
Matt,
wild that
Matt
Dan
the
came
historian, he's on it.
I'm looking it up.
Yeah, he's gonna be like, "You're wrong," and I'll be like, "Sure."
Yeah, he may.
believe
If he is, he's the only other one I could think of. But that's
Yeah.
probably that's if he came back for later seasons, it's kind of hard to tell with him because with you're a creator of a show, you're attached to so much, and we knew Dan and the process going on.
Yeah,
Because you're attached. Like Dan's name is on season 4.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to see unless you were paying attention and watching. But yeah, he's one of the rare people in that category.
What do you guys think about the tone of season 5? I feel like when it started, the repilot, which is an episode I enjoy, has a really different tone and kind of feels like it's setting up a different season than the rest of it really follows to be. What do you guys feel about that? Do you think it ends up going back to the more lighter community tones, or do you think the lighting affects the mood of the show? Do you think it's dark in season 5?
I think it's interesting and especially like as you were asking us, like, hey, what are your 5 favorite episodes, and then what are your you said bottom 3. I'm going to say least favorite because I try to frame that differently in my mind, because it's like, how do you pick like the least of all these things? And so I think it's season 5 becomes a really interesting combination where it's not like 2 and 3 where they had 23 episodes to really run the gamut and throw in your standard kind of ABC stories and your super high concept paintballs. Like, you don't have that chance in season 5 because you only have 13 episodes. Yeah. So it was interesting to me that, like, you do still get all those things. You still get your normal sitcom-esque stories, and you still get the high concept things. But it's interesting that you say, is it kind of darker? Because some of the episodes clearly are, and they deal with some really heavy themes and subject matters, as we're going to talk about them as we go on through this particular podcast. So I think I was surprised rewatching it how high it was in my personal ranking of seasons, because I hold 5 and 6 pretty high. Like, I think that, especially getting off of network TV, they were able to do a lot in 6 that they necessarily couldn't have done. They have more time, they have smaller budget, but probably arguably more creativity, but maybe less when you don't have the constraints. There's an argument to be made for everything. I think it was a much more concise season, and, like, granted, like I said, you kind of have ups and downs, but they were able to kind of go all over the place, as they did in 2 and 3, just in a much quicker way.
Totally. Yeah, I think for me it's a lot less like overarching story driven. It's like, here's a little arc, here's nothing, and then here's a tiny arc at like the end, So I think they do a lot more like silly stuff. They had a lot more like creativity than season 4. Season 4 is pretty, this is where we are, this is the lane that we're in, this is our like storyline. Whereas here I think they had even though they had less episodes, right, they were able to capture some of that same off-the-wall, let's go really big sometimes, but also sometimes we're just in an apartment, or we have books in a school, or we're playing an old board game, So I think this season does a really good job of showing both ends of that spectrum in less episodes.
Whenever you watch the repilot, there's a whole lot of cynicism in it, and everything that you can tell it's made by the same person that goes on to make Rick and Morty, right?
Yeah.
Like, those two line up very well together. But I don't necessarily think that cynicism runs through the rest of the season.
I agree with you.
Which I'm thankful for, because I personally don't dig the vibe of the pilot or the cynicism, like the bleak worldview kind of thing. I respect it that it's there, but like Jeff, right, who is in this very dark place in there, even as you go through, that gets kind of dropped. I mean, like Steven said, there isn't really a big overarching theme to the season. So unlike all the seasons before, we've kind of had some big meaty threads to kind of follow through. There isn't as much in this one, and I think that in the regard to the cynicism is probably, for me, a blessing.
Yeah.
I think for better and for worse that the season doesn't have the time to go as big or as small as the other seasons. But I think what the season does really well, for me, I really like the ensemble that they build in this season by the end of it. Even as we're losing Troy, people like the Dean are becoming more spotlight characters. I think Hickey is an incredible addition this season. I love Keith David, obviously maybe a little bit more, but I think I might like Hickey a little bit more than Elroy. I think he's just a fun foil of a character. Everything he does and says feels like a real person saying them, and it makes me laugh harder. It doesn't feel like a punchline when he's like, I fought for this country. It really feels like a guy that I know like that, ranting and raving, and it's really funny to me, and it's a different type of angle on the Pierce archetype of character. And then who else do we get? We get Duncan in this season, which is great.
We get Duncan back.
We get probably my favorite Chang is season 5 Chang, because he's like out of it and weird, but still in a slightly believable way.
Much more chaotic, neutral compared
Yeah.
to previous seasons.
Well, no one
Exactly.
takes him seriously as a threat anymore, which really I like a lot more than in the Changnesia plotline. When people really take it seriously and there's really supposed to be weight for it, that isn't fun for me. But when it's just something going on in the background and you're like, okay, Chang, here's a toy to go chase after, right. I think that's
or
really
a ghost
fun.
to run from. And
Yeah, like that storyline is great. He gets some great storylines this season. Obviously, Bear Down for Midterms is one of the most iconic moments of the entire run, especially the late era of the show. If anything, I wish there was a little bit more Chang in this season.
There are a couple of people that it feels like I just wonder if they had gotten so busy that and
sure.
Ken John is one of them where
Yeah.
Ken John and Jim Rash, I'm like, I feel like you guys are popping in, saying hi, and then going off to do something else four of the work days. And yeah, I wonder if that was because of their personal schedules.
Kind of going off of that, it feels to me, if anybody in this season, it feels like Abed's a little bit off. He gets a couple of good episodes, but I feel like, I don't know, if anything, the show really missed a chance to do something a little more meaningful with his plotline the second half of the season, to really have him, I don't know, they just kind of put him in a relationship, which is cute and fun, but I don't know what it is. I feel like Abed's just a little off the season. What, Matt?
I think this is the second worst season of Community. I think Hickey was a poor choice, even though I love Jonathan Banks, and
We're starting
for
with
the
the hot
exact
takes.
reason you
Okay.
just said. I we're 8 years after. I don't call anything a hot take. It should
Sure.
be cold. But I get your I
it's
get your
still
point.
Sitting on the
Typing, Matt.
stove for a
But
long
here's
time.
the thing: pull Hickey back out and tell those stories again. And who do you get to include? You get to include more Abed. You get to include more Shirley. You get to include more Annie. You get to include more Britta. All those people suffered in this season.
That's not
Shirley,
Hickey's fault.
particularly Shirley. No, it was a choice. It was Dan's choice because he watched so much Breaking Bad while he was unemployed. That he brought in.
It's like, I want
Banks.
that
And Banks
guy.
is great.
Yeah.
Great actor. But the problem is, when you bring him in, you have to spend time explaining and having his purpose put in front of him. And you don't have time for your main characters, who are really good at this, to be explored and used. I think ultimately he pulls down the season because they have to spend so much time servicing him. I don't have a solution for Advanced D&D. I'll go ahead and admit it. I don't have a solution for that episode.
To do it without
but
him.
to do it without him, but I don't. I think Dan's smart enough to figure out one, but I think you can replace him with somebody else and tell a better story in every other episode he's in.
Wow.
I actually, and I get what you're saying. I don't know that, this might be my hot take, I don't know that Dan knows particularly what to do with anyone aside from Jeff this season.
Yeah.
So I
think
don't
that's
know
more
that
than
the
fair.
addition of Hickey really took away from anything that was going to happen.
I think Hickey, the character, adds to the season just because he's funny. And I don't think he takes up so much screen time that it takes away from other people. I think what it is that the show focuses so much on the concept of Greendale that really everybody gets lost in it, whether it's because of personal schedules, actor to actor. Just, I'm not sure. It kind of, I think that's about the best I can say. It felt like we were focused more on the school at large than the people inside of it.
Let me give you some suggestions how you would make the change. In Intro to Teaching, you don't make it about Jeff learning to be a teacher is learning the purpose of being a teacher is about students. So you put Neil or Dave, Darson in there, or you have Garrett in there sitting in his class like, it's great that I'm going to get a good grade because, you don't grade very hard, but I actually need to know this stuff. That completely changes him and teaching. I don't know why Dan hates every profession but writing, but he apparently doesn't care for them. And so every profession
Touché.
in this is a doofus thing. Everybody who does a real job is it's either mystical power like AC repair, or you're an idiot, or you're
you can really
a
tell
heartless
his
person.
disdain with anyone who's in charge in
Yeah.
Carl
Oh,
and
yeah.
Richie being like just absolute copy and paste of like network executive types. That
Oh,
just
yeah.
idiot, like uncreative idiots, and that definitely comes through in some of the characters.
So you could have the characters relearning, get more comfortable where they are, and have Jeff figure out why teaching matters for the student, not for Jeff. And that gives Jeff value. It's a more heartfelt episode, and it would work better. And it would piss people like myself, who actually taught people for a while, it would piss us off less.
Jeff, I actually feels like one of the only people that I can feel like an actual story arc for this season.
Yeah, he's it.
You said
Oh,
for
sure,
Jeff.
because
Yeah,
you got
for
that
Jeff.
at the beginning of the season. You got G.I. Jeff at the end of the season, and kind of him having a personality crisis with hooking up with Britta and losing his. Yeah, for sure.
And
There's
then
an
you
arc
have
for
a
Jeff here.
meandering two-part finale that just meanders and doesn't seem to do anything.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
speaking of that, let's go ahead and move on to the first listing portion. Let's talk about our least favorite episodes of the season. Who would like to go first? Who would like to give us their bottom three first?
I'll kick us off.
All right, Steve.
So there are two that were almost in this bottom three, but didn't quite make it. But I feel the need to mention it. I'm sure they'll be discussed either in someone's top or some other location. But this was tough for me to find my bottom three. But there were three episodes that bothered me more than the others. But honorable mention to G.I. Jeff. Not a big fan of that episode. I love G.I. Joe. I love Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas. I do not like G.I. Jeff. And also honorable mention to Repilot. I also am not a huge fan of that. I understand the sentimental value of it and things like that, but I don't think it's that great an episode. That being said, my number three in descending order. My number three is Basic Sandwich. Not a big fan of the finale.
Wow.
If that
Okay.
was the last episode I ever saw of Community, I'd be pretty ticked. Don't think it was a good ending for really anybody. I guess Jeff, maybe. I don't know. Chang has a happy ending. There we go. It's a that's
He gets his
the
diamond
the
teeth.
Chang route. Number two for me is Bondage and Beta Male Sexuality. Wasn't a big fan of that one. I like the Chang runner, but that's about it. And then my least favorite episode all season, and it was like milking an almond is how I can describe what it was
What?
like to try and talk for an hour and a half about basic story. Nothing happens. It's not great, just not good in my opinion. That is like the only episode this whole season that I was like, that was bad. Like there's some that I'm like, that was, not up to snuff. That one, that's pretty down low on my all-time Community list after trying to really dig into it. But that's where I'm at with those.
All right.
Good list. Who wants to
Thank
pick
you.
up off of that?
I'll go.
Yeah.
My number three, so we'll go from the number one will be what is my least favorite of the season. My number three is Repilot. Again, like I said, the cynicism of the tone, the why is everybody back? Felt like I didn't get like a great reason for why everybody is back. And then Greendale time is weird, and so it didn't make sense that all of these people have given up after graduation. And it's both the thing I accept and the thing that I go with.
Yep.
My number two is Basic Sandwich. I don't like the finale. I honestly don't like a Community finale after... Full disclosure, I have not actually ever watched the series finale. Whenever I watch it on the
neither.
show for the first time, it's going to be for the first time. But I have not liked a season finale since A Few Paintballs More.
Sure.
It's fair.
I just don't like any of them. They all kind of feel the same. And I understand every season is wrapping it up. Like, we don't know if this is going to be a season or series finale. But, we end up retreading the same feel of the episode all three seasons. All, 3, 4, and 5.
I very much agree.
I just don't like some of the resolutions we get to in Basic Sandwich, including I'm not going to get into that part. Never mind. I won't.
Let it hang. Let it fly. Let it
come
fly.
Do we get a
Get
hint?
something, yeah.
This season did a very good job of not dipping into the Annie Jeff well that much.
Talk your
And
talk.
then all of a sudden, it's like there and raging, like both on Annie's part. It's just weird. It's weird, and particularly from Annie, it's like it's all of a sudden she's back to like over a year and a half ago kind of thing.
That's interesting. I don't know if I totally agree with you there, because I think the Annie of this season versus the Annie of last season is miles apart. Whereas like last season you get Annie dressing up Jeff's apartment and Annie like calling herself Mrs. Winger at the hotel room. I feel like in this episode, or in this season, in the last episode, Annie being so annoyed about Jeff and Britta doesn't really read to me as like pining schoolgirls so much as like they're f***ing disgusting me. And sure, maybe I'm like attracted to this guy and there's like something there, but I didn't think it was quite as. And we are not Jeff Annie shippers
Zach
on this
also
side.
disagreed with me in where I think that it reads in the last episode that not a single little whir of that computer reacted until he said the goddamn Annie thing in his head. It was dead silent for Abed, dead silent for the dean, but he thinks about Milady and
Shirley
Maser,
wasn't even invited.
and the robot gets a hard on, and I think that throw it in the trash.
Yeah, okay.
The commentary agrees with you, Stephen. No, I mostly agree with Jillian on that. That's
Okay.
Yeah.
No, my 3. I'll do this.
Wait, did she do
Julie
number
didn't
one?
That wasn't my number one.
That-
My number one is G.I. Jeff, y'all.
Hey-o!
It's G.I. Jeff. For that one, I don't mind the oddball premise, but for that one, they play this game of like, what's actually going on for so long that like, it happens. I feel like it's so long before we realize what's wrong with Jeff that like, if I had gotten that reveal towards the beginning of it, I feel like I would have gotten more out of the actual story. Instead of it just feeling like they wanted to do a G.I. Joe parody and wanted to figure out a way to write the story about it. And yeah, I just didn't dig it.
Yeah,
It has my favorite line of the season.
Which one's that?
Is it I have 3 kids?
No. I need to quote this correctly, so give me exactly 1 second.
I might be able to pull it. What's the part you're thinking of?
Oh no, I have it on my.
Okay.
I have it on my. We live in a fascist police state disguised as democracy.
Nice.
Boom.
Is that
True.
in the tag? Is that when that happens? Yeah,
Yeah.
it happens like literally right before Abed drops and knowing is half the battle.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
literally one line before.
I
That's
love
great.
that.
One
What
line
is he
before.
like? Not too convoluted a message. Graffiti's bad. Go
Yeah.
play.
Go
Okay,
play
I
sports.
get it.
that was the best part of that episode was the intact. That was
Charlie.
the best part.
Well, go ahead, Matt. What are your 3?
3 and 2, it's basic story and basic sandwich. I just don't think it ends the season very well. I think it tells, parts of it is really good. I like parts of it, but the basic premise of it is kind of dumb. It is not well thought out, and it doesn't seem to have value for the people that are there. It just seems to be.
Matt, I'm telling Jay.
Yeah, tell Jay. I'm telling you now.
Jay's sitting in the waiting room weeping right
Just
now.
really
So
anxious.
upset.
Oh, he's dropped now. It's like
This one
like
we're
my
bringing him
episode.
in.
No,
Slandering basic story. I'm out of here.
I love there are bits in it, but the overall story about it doesn't work very well. And Basic Sandwich, I love Chris Elliott. All right, I've watched Chris Elliott since the '80s, before all of you were born. I really like Chris Elliott. I liked him here. I still don't like where the story was going. So it's really about the 2-part story, and the way Dan took the last moments of season 5 and stuck a finger up to NBC,
Jesus.
basically saying, "I dare you to cancel us because we said 6 seasons."
They
of the
said
movie."
okay.
And they said okay. I mean,
But
I did
thought
like the
that was
Antag,
I get
I'm
the
not gonna
motivation,
lie.
but for
I-
me, that's the most legendary thing of all
love
time.
it.
I know
Oh,
that
it is.
it would be sad if that was how the show ended, but on the other hand,
And
if
it almost was.
yeah,
I mean,
if
that's the
Community was
thing.
that show that ended with the characters saying if we don't come back, we all died from an asteroid, that's awesome. We'd be talking about that for forever.
No, but we're paying attention to celebrity beat off or
Yeah.
the one where there's
Captain
somebody
Cook.
with the one with a salami sword or
Mr. Egypt.
Thought Jacker,
Egypt.
Mr. Egypt. I mean, it's,
BJ Novak is starring in one of those shows, so I'm watching.
He's
so-
Mr.
oh, yeah,
Egypt.
absolutely.
He is Mr. Egypt.
Depends on
No.
what
He is
fails.
I
Depends on
remember
Karen.
when I watched that, I thought, oh God, Dan just got him canceled, and it turned out to be true. And my least favorite episode is bondage and beta male sexuality.
Yeah.
Least favorite by far. The story with Abed doesn't work. The story in the bar about Britta is creepy, ultimately. And the Chang runner is the best part of the episode, and it doesn't get a lot of time because there's not a lot they can do with it.
Yeah.
So-
Okay, I'll go. I'll give my bottom three. And this will be in, yeah,
And I'll
sure.
go last.
And this will be in my descending, so starting with the least worst. My number 3 is Bonda and Bondage
Bonda
and
Bondage.
beta male sexuality. There are things I like about the episode. I think the Abed story is just fine. That's the episode where Hickey keeps him from the movie, right?
Yes.
I have had problems
Assaulted
in the past
him, yes.
well, sure, whatever. But I've had problems in the past with...
Sure, whatever.
I'm okay
Abed-
with assault.
Yeah.
I
certain
draw the line.
circumstances.
I think
I can
the
excuse
Abed
racism, but I draw the line on animal cruelty.
deserved maybe not to be assaulted, obviously, but it's always nice for me when Abed, like, I don't know, the speech that Hickey gives about everyone's like, oh, Abed, he's so sensitive. If he sees it, what's the line? If he sees
hamburger.
what is
If
it?
Abed sees a hamburger, everyone's
If
going to
Abed
travel
sees a
through
hamburger.
time.
I think that's really funny. I like the Abed storyline, but I don't like any of the stuff at the bar other than Chang. I think Jeff being so flippant about Britta as like, oh yeah, I used to bang her, I'm not banging her anymore, you can have her, maybe I want her, I don't buy that, I don't like that. Obviously Duncan's gonna be gross, and then I think it's a total missed opportunity to bring up like Britta's past in the way that they do and to not dive further into it. I think it's a really cool idea that it sucks we only got for a second. My number 2 worst is VCR maintenance and educational publishing.
You
I
really
think
don't like
it's-
that one.
I don't hate it, and that's another thing is I love season 5. I would rather watch my least favorite episodes of season 5 more than my least favorite episodes of just about any other season. This episode is fine, but it just kind of feels like 2 B stories. It doesn't really feel like anything, I don't know, nothing super strong. The textbook storyline never really goes anywhere. I feel like it's missing a big thing to take it into the next level. Vince Gilligan's the best part of it, I
Yeah.
think.
Yes.
And then my worst
Another
of the
fantastic
season,
in-tag in a
Basic
not so great
story.
episode.
Worst
Yeah.
of the season is Basic Story. It feels like the season finale was supposed to just be 1 episode, which I think it was, and then they stretched it out into 2, and boy, does the stretch feel like one. But it's also kind of badass that there's a extended shot on national television of a guy just slurping some soup out of a bowl. That's pretty cool.
That's
so
fun.
weird.
That's
Honestly, for
I brought that up
basics-
to Jay.
Yeah.
Really?
Just slurping.
That's awesome.
That was on NBC. That's pretty cool.
It was one of my favorite. I'm sorry, Jillian, and you can take it up after I make this comment.
No,
Just
you're
because it
good.
was like, and you'll see there's a theme in my list because already I can tell mine are going to be way different than the rest of your guys. So I'm very happy
Wow.
to go last. But that was something I brought up to him where that's most likely either that's scripted or it's a director's choice. So the fact that you're leaving Abed and going to a character who we've never seen before, just eating some soup at a cubicle, like
Doesn't come
died.
back.
It's so funny.
It's a very Atlanta thing to do.
My thing with the finale, right, for Basic Story and Basic Sandwich, for me, at least Basic Story, I feel like there's a depth of character motivation from most of the characters. Like, Jeff has finally found this comfortable place, and then it's being ripped away. Like, they've made Greendale better. Like, they found this home, and then it's being ripped away, and that's eliciting a reaction from a lot of people. And then I feel like we totally lose the heart that I felt was in Basic Story when we get to Basic Sandwich. It's like none of those, it's all of a sudden just all about whenever we go downstairs. But that's just me.
Basic Sandwich isn't on either of my lists. I kind of like Basic Sandwich. I get why you wouldn't like it, but it's the type of silly that I was able to turn off enough of my thinking to go along with it and enjoy it. I think it's ridiculous that there's just been this guy high on coke, living underneath the school for 30 years
He
or
was
whatever.
only high
I'm
on
okay
coke
with
for the
that.
first 20
That's
years.
true.
Yeah, he's
The
been
first 10
sober a
years.
painfully long time.
Okay, Dan, what you
So,
got?
just me. Now I have my three least favorite. I'm with you, Zach. My number 3 is VHR maintenance and educational publishing, where I even have it in my notes. I'm like, so it almost bumped up to the top 5 for the Dean's Rap alone.
Oh, sure.
Because that cold open is one of the best of the entire series.
Yeah.
It's so goddamn funny. But and like we said, Vince Gilligan doing the pile of bullets is so good. The story around it is okay, but man, that finding those textbooks, that story just drags to me. It's like one of those things where it's like, what do we do with these 4 or 5 characters coming and going? Kind of, how do we make this story work? And I feel like it just kind of suffered. Here's going to be my first take. My second least favorite is Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Wow.
Okay. Why?
This is the one rare misstep to where it's like almost every other time you revisit paintball, let's not count season 4. Let's say you revisit these other things. You can even kind of include hot lava in these high concept episodes. To me, this one felt very forced. Like, it felt like you were forcing David Cross's character in here. It felt like you were forcing Hickey to have this kind of back and forth. And then what do we do with these characters around it? Like, the first one, the first Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, is arguably the best episode of Community. It is arguably the best episode they ever produced. And so to go back to that well and try to split the atom, but literally pull them apart and then force it, like, for me, the best part of that is the Jeff and Dean relationship with the Riggs Die Hard. That's the funniest thing.
Yeah.
And then a couple of like random one-off jokes where it's like, do you know where he was for my whole childhood? Try a little place that rhymes with not there, and then Chang goes Times Square. Like, the story jokes don't work as well for me in that. Like, and I kind of had to be honest with myself because I was like, just how much, like, the first one was just so good. It was like, and you can tell there's a lot of what we're going to be talking about is Dan Harmon being like, oh yeah, you can't improve upon that, watch this. And it was like, to me, it felt like this was kind of that. And they even kind of like wink at that where Jeff's like, oh, let's get some froyo, it's on me, hug it out. And they're both like, ah. So they tried to introduce enough to make it feel different, but it didn't really to me. And then my number 1 least favorite is the one we've all talked about so far, is bondage and beta male sexuality, where, like you said, the Brita stuff is kind of creepy. What I wrote is this episode felt like competitive wine tasting. It
and I
felt
don't
like
like
the
that one
episode.
either.
Exactly. It feels like that episode where Pierce is being creepy towards the corporate spy, and Abed is trying. Like, I actually didn't mind the Abed Hickey storyline because I thought
agree.
I thought that's how those two characters would genuinely interact, and I liked the very tail end where it was like Duncan and Jeff being buddies again. Like that to me was the cherry on that episode. Like, obviously we love all these episodes. There's going to be lots of redeeming things throughout the whole time, but that's still to me the weakest episode in season 5.
I think there's some solid lists. I like the variation we got going on. I'm excited.
Am I
to see
the only one that
top
didn't
5.
have bondage and beta male sexuality on my list?
That was not lost on me. Yes,
that's my dead last. So yeah,
yeah. One. I'm the only one that didn't have bondage and beta male sexuality. Interesting.
That feels like the type of episode that would have been better tackled the way that they tackle things in season 6. You know, like the way that they do I don't know the full title of the Karate Kid episode, but the way that they handle some of the issues in that episode and some of the issues in like the British Parents episode. I think with a 30-minute episode, fill that out a little bit more. Obviously, you don't have Duncan. I think it could have worked a little bit better. Not a big fan of that one. But let's go on to the better things. Let's go into the top 5 episodes of the season. Why don't we go in the same order? Steven, were you first?
Okay, so I want to clarify. These are my top 5 favorite episodes of the season. Not necessarily what I think the top 5 best episodes are. I think that's a different order, but I do hold all these episodes highly, and I think they all have a lot of merit where merit is due. I am going to give another honorable mention here. I did not include the Ass Crack Bandit episode in my top 5. I enjoy it. I like a lot of things about it, but it did not make my top 5 favorite episodes, even though I do think it is definitely one of the top 5 best episodes of the season, if that makes sense.
No, that does not make sense.
I think it makes sense.
So my number 5, just edging out the Ass Crack Bandit for one reason and one reason, well, not 2 reasons and 2 reasons alone, is analysis of quark-based networking. I think bear down for midterms and then flipping that to what was it?
Fat dog.
Fat
Fat dog.
Fat
for
dog.
midterms.
I think that's the best joke in all of Community. I don't think anything makes me laugh harder than that away from the episode. Like if I'm like sitting around and I'm like fat dog, I'll laugh for a good chunk of time.
Just Chang's speech of just the whole thing. Just I feel like you guys don't take me seriously. And then at the end, we're like, "Well, what can we do for you?" Bear down for midterms. Okay.
When it falls and Garrett realizes it's a bear.
It's a
Bear dance.
And then that's how the episode ends. It
Yes.
always feels before the end tag. It always feels so abrupt to me because there's no chaos. It's just I love
Yeah,
it.
as much as I'm
Glad you
okay
mentioned that
with
one.
like the main storyline of that episode, and I think it's not perfect, that alone puts it like just the laugh factor puts it really high for me.
I also just real quick, I think the cameos cannot be understated
Sure.
in that episode.
Oh
as
my
well.
God.
Incredible.
There's so many.
So
So
great.
many. There were like 10. I think whenever I went through, there were
Wow.
like 9 or 10 in that episode.
Wow.
I can list most. You have Kumail Nanjiani, you have Nathan Fillion, you have Robert Patrick, you have Paget Brewster doing a little Frankie preview.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anybody else.
There's a bunch of people that like basically all of the janitors are various like cameos and everything, and the custodians.
Yeah.
and, you know, all that.
This whole
It's-
season, especially like the first half, 2/3 of it, is just stuffed with cameos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of
And then
folks.
they went through their budget. And
They only had
Probably.
enough money for that one Dave Matthews song, and that's it.
Had
Found-
a very basic genealogy feel. But yeah, go ahead.
Fair. Well, I also don't hate basic genealogy as much as Zach does, I know. But that's because I like Catherine McPhee.
Why do you always project these things onto me? You don't know how I feel about
I
things.
do know how you feel about basic
That
I
episode's-
remember our round tables, Zach. I know your bottom threes. Number 4, app development condiments. I think that just descent into madness is hilarious. It probably deserves to be higher on this list, but I think it's really good. It's really funny. The cameos in that one are great too, so I think that's just a really funny episode. Chang as a 5 is hilarious. I also think that I enjoy any storyline where they actually involve Shirley, and I think that a Shirley Jeff like butting heads dynamic is something that I normally enjoy when the show does it. Number 3, and this is especially where I get into my favorite versus what I think is the best, cooperative polygraphy. I think it's a great episode, fantastically done. The only reason why I think it's not in my top 2 is because I enjoyed the roundtable reading so much. Now when I go back and watch the episode and it doesn't have Pedro Pascal, I'm a little bit sad. Not
Yeah, but
that
you
the actual
obviously-
person in the episode doesn't
come on,
do a fantastic job.
Walton Goggins is-
Walton Goggins.
Yeah, he's great. He's
So
great.
good.
But my enjoyment of the Zoom call table read does at least make the episode still great for me, but let me know that I can enjoy it in other forms too. So great episode, really love it.
That's
Number
bad
2 for
opinion,
me.
Steven. Bad.
Number 2
Bad
for me
opinion.
is geothermal escapism. Troy's my favorite character in the show. Troy's goodbye. I think it's a really funny episode. I also think that all the emotional weight between Abed and Troy and Britta, who I think is the star of that episode, all that works really, really, really well for me. Like, I get emotional at the end every time. I think it's a really good episode. It's really close to my heart. Which means my number 1 spot is in fact occupied by Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. It's not perfect. I love David Cross. I think the Dean is at his best in that episode. I think Abed gets one of the few times this season where I think he gets to shine as Abed. When he's dungeon mastering in this episode, I think he really like takes it on in a great way. I love the like music production of that episode is fantastic. Like the way they draw it out and where they have Abed going from room to room. I also think that, you know, one of the other best jokes in the entire show is the Dean writing all those letters over the... It couldn't have been that long, but
like,
he's just
stroking
constantly
his teeth with,
writing...
like-
just waiting for Jeff's
Stroking
sword
and
to
thinking
match
of
his in
you
the
at
light.
night.
I love that episode. I think it's really fun for me to watch. It has its shortcomings, but it makes me really, really, really happy to watch it. So that's my top 5. Matt
list.
wants to make Zach his favorite son, but, you know,
Why?
it's okay.
For what? Because you put why?
Matt's about done with me today. It's fine.
Really? Okay. You're always projecting stuff onto people. I don't know about this.
It's okay. Dad and I have this for a relationship you won't. Maybe you'll have with him one day, Zachary.
Okay.
But I know what his eyes are telling me.
Very contentious.
I've been stroking my sheath for like 30 minutes waiting for the reflection. It's just not happening.
Waiting for the light just to shine out from the other room.
Yeah, it's kind of starting to hurt.
Phrases you will not hear from me include a reference to what you just said.
So who's next? Is it Jillian?
It's Jillian.
Yes.
Is it me? Okay, so I am going to give an honorable mention, but it is not going to be in my top 5. But I'm giving it an honorable mention because I went back and forth and I couldn't decide. To basic intergluteal I cannot say the last word for the life of me.
Numismatics.
There we go.
Numismatics.
That gets my honorable mention. I respect it. I love David Fincher. But a couple things just edge it out. And the first thing that edges it out is actually VCR maintenance and educational publishing.
Bang, 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 bang,
Oh,
bang,
wow.
bang, bang.
I love, for one, the Abed. I love that we get Abed, we get Annie, we get a fleshing out of Rachel more, which is nice. It's one of it is one of the only heartfelt moments with Abed we get outside of with Troy this season. Like his ending with the water and everything and him just talking to Rachel and being completely open is showing some of the growth that Abed has managed to achieve throughout all these seasons. And then I really love Breaking Bad, so I did not mind the total homage and Breaking Bad feel of the story with the other people. I thought it was just fun. And also it is a fun script for Yvette. She got to do a lot of fun acting and have a lot of fun moments and really command the scenes in that episode. And so for that reason, it made my top 5. Then I'm going to go with cooperative polygraphy. It's a fantastic bottle episode. It has Walton Goggins, who, is a respect to Pedro Pascal, but Walton Goggins I have been fascinated with him since the first time I saw him on Justified. And whenever he was in here, I was like, yes, this
And obviously
is amazing.
The Righteous Gemstones just continues to prove that Walton Goggins is so funny when you let him
Uncle
be
Baby
funny.
Billy.
Come on,
I
Nat.
love him.
I love Baby
I
Billy.
love him. Baby Billy's great. I love him. And it's just fun. And it is, again, a teasing out of the actual dynamics of the study group. Because whenever he sits there and they go, Pierce hasn't asked a question in 5 minutes or whatever the line is. They're just tearing each other apart, and they've spent all this time and all these years blaming Pierce, and he's gone. And they're still doing it. And that is such a beautiful, beautiful study of their relation to each other. And then you even get to break down and study what Pierce gave to each of them. And so I really love that. Then I'm going to go with my number 3, geothermal escapism. It's great. It's touching. We get a lot of breakdown. Also, Britta is a badass. And so I'm always down for that. My number 2 is Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I like it better than the first Dungeons and Dragons episode.
I don't know about that, but okay. Okay.
I think its pacing is better. I think its actual reasoning. Look, I play D&D regularly. Fair. I appreciate the breakdown of all of it, and including it's got a frenetic kind of constant battling together. It's not all of us against one person. We have 2 sides. We get to have a nice breakdown. It's got that whole the end battle scene where they're shouting the things at it. For one, we have not rolled
Dingleberry smash.
Yeah. We've not rolled initiative, so they're wrong. But also, I love it because
nice.
It managed to create. In a form that is not particularly frenetic the feeling of a battle.
Yeah.
Which I loved, and then I actually love the way it ends. I love that it shows these two going from working against each other to finding a common reason and a common purpose. And in my head, I like to believe that Abed DMs for them once a week from then on, and that might be the only time they see each other, but like they get to come together and have this sort of relationship.
I'm adding that to my headcanon. That's great.
I love it. And then just visually, it is a visually amazingly shot episode. The interrogation scene whenever Abed is being interrogated by Hickey.
Top tier. Yeah.
The soft lens on the dean whenever he is talking and like pining for Jeff's character. It's just all top to bottom. I think just like the candles. It's all just great. I love it. And then my number one is app development and condiments. It's just meow meow beans, man.
Wow,
that's great.
Number one. It is one of my favorite episodes of this entire show.
Respect.
I love it. I love the dynamics. I love the costuming, like the way we thought about this is what O2 dresses like. This is what a 3 dresses like. This are 4s who have honestly the best costumes. 4s win. The 5s, you know, it's they really went so far in, and then Britta and her being the mother of ones. It's fantastic, and I love it. And you know, I would get meow meow beans tattooed on me. It's fantastic.
I've thought the same thing, that the cat symbol is the perfect vague community tattoo. But then the thought is, though, I don't really want to get 5 of them. So if I
you're
get
not a
one,
5,
do
Zach,
I
so you don't have to
suck?
worry about that.
Get 4s.
Right.
Get 4s. 4s have
That's
the best
generous.
costumes.
Zach,
Okay.
2.5
It's
on a
got
good
the
day.
most-
So I'll go
color.
to the tattoo guy and be like, I need 4 of these. They'll be like, why? And I'll be like, well, 4s get the best costume.
You got 4 of them filled in, and
then
one
you
of
have that
them
one-
not
yeah,
filled
one
in.
not-
Different colors, I guess. You could always get the Delta Cube. That's probably simpler and something you get removed later if you don't use color.
I'm just going to get the Greendale anus tattooed on my neck. I think that'll really send
There
the
you
right
go.
message.
On your neck.
Yeah.
If
That's
you
not
ever
where you
wanna
get a
be
tattoo.
I live and
I never
breathe
claim you
community.
in any shape or form.
You're
Get the butt
he's
tattoo
gonna disown
on your
you.
neck. That
You get it as a
I don't
you get
own
it
you
as a
now.
tramp stamp.
I'm getting a tramp
Or
stamp
claim
that
me.
says at Communies 25K and counting.
wow.
Perfect.
Speaking of, Papa, why don't you give us your list?
Jesus. I don't have an honorable
Disconnect.
mention. For number, because that wasn't in the rules. For my number 5, my number 5 is Intro to Teaching. I don't particularly care
Yeah.
for the first part of the story. The number 1, but the number 2 is gloriously perfect as Abed completely melts down trying to understand Nicolas Cage as someone who saw the unbearable weight of immense talent. That's I couldn't think of anything but that movie this episode the entire time. And that should let Jay get back into the waiting room. He directed that one.
I didn't know he directed that. That's awesome.
Yeah, he directed
One of
2
my
of them.
favorite jokes in the whole show is that episode with Annie's criminology report. The
Oh,
year
yeah,
next
it's
with the knife through a rat. Like, look what my criminology professor gave me. Oh my God. No, look at the grade.
And Jay loved that
Such a
the
good
riot
joke.
starts with Neil knocking over a trash can.
love
and
it. Oh, yeah.
everybody loses their mind. He thought that was a lovely bit, and he's right. My number 4 is geothermal escapism. I wish we had more time with Troy. I wish he got to say more. I wish Abe got to say more. But outside of that, it's a beautiful homage that works really well. And ultimately, the last bit of it is worth everything else. So
Yeah.
I like that. And that brief bit of Duncan and me. That was nice. My number 3 is app development. I as a fan of the show, after Troy left, I was worried. You worry about what can they still pull off, and then they do this full-on homage to multiple, dystopic movies from the '70s, and it's just perfect. So I really like that, and I like the story, and I like the idea behind it. So I thought it worked really well, and then of course Black Mirror copied it. My number 2 is cooperative polygraphy. That is of the sit around the table reveal episodes. It's really good, and it doesn't matter which one you're watching. Pedro losing his mind over trying just to say semen over and over. Saying sperm. That's great. But Goggins hit the
Deadpan.
emotional beats at the end that didn't happen the same. So they're both being able to watch both of them and see the difference and watch them.
Goggins' deadpan makes the end tags so
And also
funny.
It really does.
It's completely different, and it's a lot of fun. And ultimately, my number one is Pneumonistics. I think that is probably, with Basic Lupine, their best homage of anything ever.
Wow.
I think it's right up there. I think those are the two best straight homage episodes they do. They nailed the look, not just with the color. They talk about the characters some. They don't worry about the problem with some of the episodes is worrying about getting everybody involved, and so you get everybody involved and it gets convoluted and weighed down and doesn't go anywhere. Mm-hmm. They don't really do that here. They really focus on a pair and move through the story. So I think it worked really good. And just from a Twitter standpoint, people still ask this question every month.
The Ass Crack Bandit.
Well,
Who's Ass Crack
I was going to
Bandit?
ask, who do we all think the Ass Crack Bandit is? Matt,
I
do you
think
have
it's
a
the
matter.
janitors.
It doesn't matter.
I have not written it all down, but I have an argument that it's Leonard.
Whoa!
No way is Leonard that fast.
No.
He's not fast.
way too
He's
slow.
not the person who's putting it on the quarters. He's the one who set it up and running it.
He's the puppet master.
Steven had the impression that it's
I think it's more than
multiple
one person. Yeah.
I think it's the janitors.
That's a solid
I think
guess.
it's the guy selling $15 overalls for $100 a pop.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the guy who's benefiting from this
It was
thing.
also the only thing I can think of is in the show. It is heavily implied it's actually Annie.
Yeah.
and
Yes,
they actually
yes.
talk about this is baby spoiler, Jillian, for the finale. They bring up the Ass Crack Bandit in the finale, and they cut right to her, and she goes, "Oh no one,
Could have
no
been
one,
anybody."
we don't know who it is. Could be anybody."
Yeah.
Like she's real squirrely about it. So it's one of those things where
and the Rubens had it written on a copy of his script that it's probably Annie. He's like, yeah. So he didn't even buy it was Andy, and they intended to write it where it could be anybody, but it doesn't actually work that well
Yeah.
for that. It can't really be Joel. It probably isn't Annie.
When we covered it, I thought Steven made a good point that it's possible that Shirley could be involved because the way that she breaks the news of Pierce's passing conveniently is they're just moments away from figuring out who it really is. Maybe she's covering something up by giving that information at that exact moment.
I've always thought it's probably the roommates working together at some level, but it's Leonard's thing. It's Leonard's thing.
Leonard's
and he
running
gets
it.
people in. Yeah, I don't think Vicky was cracked.
Whoa!
I think
Oh,
Vicky's in. I think
whenever
it's part
I
of the
was-
strict thing.
Whenever we watched the episode, my theory was that it was Neil and Vicky.
Yeah,
Like,
I think it's a
that it
group
was
of
doing it.
people, and Leonard basically runs it, and he does so to pay for stuff and buy things.
That's funny.
Well, I think the fact that we all have different guesses speaks to the impact and how well the episode is done. That we're all like, oh well, it could
Yeah,
be.
that works.
And that it's literally someone putting quarters in buttholes. And we're all talking about it like it's a serial killer.
Butt cracks, Zach the Butthole Bandit
no, I think
is a
some of
much
them
more
fall
heinous
down.
offender.
But what are you
And,
going to
and
do?
I think
Not have
Kukowski could have done a better job than Hickey in this role because he's an actual police officer.
God, I wish we
He's,
could have had Kukowski in that.
Because you
episode.
get
Really
Kukowski
funny.
back, and he can still the same. So you just admitted you owned a butt. It's a completely different joke.
Yeah.
But
That's
Kukowski's
funny joke.
Kukowski's a comedic actor. I think he would have made more out of it.
And you think about how good he is in the
I don't
next
like this
season with the
Hickey slang.
hacking.
Oh yeah, perfect.
And what does he say? Once McDonald's. So funny.
Okay, I'll give my 5. I'm going to start with number 5. My number 5 is actually G.I. Jeff. I really like G.I. Jeff. Except for, the last 2 minutes of it. I think the way that they all hug and, oh, silly Jeff, old man, moments after he, unintentionally kind of tried to kill himself while freaking out about his age. It's a really heavy topic, and I really like the way that the episode dabbles in that while also making all of the great reference points to animation of that time. But then in the end, when they try to make it into let's all hug around the hospital bed, that's the one thing that rubs
The
me
live
wrong
action
about
part
that episode.
sucked. Everything else was great. Yeah.
That's the one thing. If it wasn't for that, it might have even been higher on the list. Number 4 is going to be basic intergluteal numismatics. I think an episode like that could have been at any point in the show's run and would have been really celebrated. What show in its 5th season is turning out super creative bangers like that are sure, sort of tied into stuff they've done before, but pretty original compared to anything they've done before. Really like that episode. Think it's really special, and you get the whole cast in it. so that's cool, other than Pierce. Number 3 is going to be Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. It's not the classic, but it works really well for me. As someone with certified daddy issues, I think the way that they solve without solving that problem in the end works really well. To kind of go off of what Jillian said, I don't even need to think that the father and son get together every week. I just like that the episode shows that there's not a solution to that. They're still going to butt heads. The son's still probably not going to want him around his kids. But they were, I don't know. I think there not being a comfy resolution to that episode means a lot to me, because that's how those issues are. My number 2 is going to be App Development and Condiments. I think it's one of the most creative episodes of the series, and I think it might just be the weirdest episode of the entire series. Sure, it's kind of an homage to those movies that Matt was mentioning, but it's a pretty original idea that it doesn't exactly feel like let's do a blank episode came before the idea of let's make this app and the whole, I don't know. I love these episodes where the school is just willing to angry mob into something for whatever reason, and watching it turn into this post-apocalyptic mess. And it's the perfect joke of, guys, it's Saturday. What are you doing here? Go home. I think that's a really, really great episode. And my number 1 is Cooperative Polygraphy, which might very well be my favorite episode of the series. I think it's perfect. I think all the characters are represented perfectly, even Pierce. And I think, man, it really shoves the puppet episode's face in the sand by showing, like, even 5 seasons deep, there are things that these characters don't know about each other that can really affect their relationships and that seem real, that don't seem like they're digging for it. I think that episode is perfect, and that's my top 5.
Nice.
Awesome. That leaves me, and as I was sitting here hearing all of the thing, I'm realizing my view and opinion has changed on the show so much. I've lost it. I'm upwards of 10 to 15 times of rewatching everything, various states.
You're still a counter.
I'm still counting how many times.
You're still
that's
counting,
why I know I don't know. It's,
okay,
it's genuinely at least that high. No, I've let it go. Because it's one of those things where, here, I'll rip the 2 Band-Aids off. I don't have Meow Meow Beans or Ass Crack Bandit in my top 5.
Wow.
That's okay. I didn't have Geothermal Escapism in mine.
I had, well, and that's the thing is, like, as I'm going on, I'm thinking the themes and what is important to me as I'm watching the show and what I'm identifying with is changing as I'm getting older. And so, like,
sure.
I made the list earlier today, and I'm like, just to split the time, and because a lot of the things that are on my top 5 were near the bottom for the rest of you. I just want to highlight some things because I'll just split time real quick, because between 5 I could not decide between Basic Story or G.I. Jeff. Those 2 were like neck and neck for me. And G.I. Jeff was because it was one of those high concept things, and I think a comparison to Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas is probably the perfect 1-to-1. And I think it's more interesting because
I like it better than.
I don't know if I like it better than, but I think it's a great companion piece because, no, by all means, there's nothing wrong with that.
I would adopt you just to abandon you for that. It's just crazy talk.
Dad
all
got
I heard
it.
was
That's
Dad
crazy talk.
The reason being is because a lot of times I love these stories where we go really deep into a character's psyche, and I think this is a perfect allegory for Jeff. And the fact that we've been doing it for Abed for up to 4 seasons at this point, and we've never really gone that far to somebody else, I think this was the perfect time for it to happen. And I love all the jokes they do about the animation. And I think a theme of my top 5 is going to be a lot more of themes and Dan Harmon just going as meta as humanly possible, because that's the type of humor I really, really, really appreciate. And you'll see that at least with the first few on mine. But I do agree with what you said earlier is that's probably the biggest wrinkle as far as Hickey goes, because he cannot deliver heartfelt to save his life. Like at the very end, like they kind of razz him and he's like, oh, like watching that, I'm like, oh, this is cringy. Like I know you're trying to have a nice moment, but like don't end it on him not being able to take a joke. Like that was. Ooh. And then the other side, Basic Story, tied for my 5, it's like, I love Abed being super meta. I love you taking a character that you've literally taken 5 years, built him up. He is so specifically singular, and Jeff literally sits him down and looks him in the face and he goes, there's no story here. So you're basically telling a character who's been sprinting the entire time, the run of the show, to stop dead. Like right now, nothing. There's nothing happening. You don't have anything to do. And that's why you get those weird pans. And you get like him this is maybe the most meta episode of the entire show, because Abed is literally talking to the camera like it's a character, and then the camera is behaving like a character, looking around like the answer is in the teacher's lounge, and then they cut to the teacher's lounge and nothing's happening, and they cut back and Abed is sprinting away, and all of a sudden there's dramatic music. Like, I love that is happening, and there's literally no reason for it. It is only because Jeff told him there's no story. And because it's called Basic Story and it's purely to set up the finale, like, I understand, like, and then you get back into Jeff and Britta's toxic relationship, and then you get into the really ridiculous where it's like, we're going to have a buried treasure episode, and you have to tee that up. So, like, I like what they were able to do with that. It made me happy. And then the whole Ronald Muhammad, like, the joke of him, like, possibly dying by a vending machine crushing him. And even Jeff has, like, such a good arc in that where he's like, we fixed it when we saved Greendale. And he's like, oh shit, we saved it, now what do we do? And then you get that leading into my number 4, which
Matt's
is
leaving.
Sandwich.
He didn't like that.
Matt had enough.
He's like, I'm out. Dan's talking about all these meta things, I don't like it. But, like, so I like Basic Sandwich, and again, going in, because it doubles down on that meta commentary where you get Abed back into the story because it's buried treasure. But I like that, I love that idea of how would you explain the pace of technology to someone who is at the forefront of the pace of technology, and then literally take them off the grid for 40 years and now bring them back, and how do they react to this? And that's one of my favorite things to quote, where it's like, you can, I don't think it's in, because I just rewatched it, I don't think it's in this episode, but it's like, what is this? This is a little device you can look up all the answers on the planet on, but people mostly just use it to watch cat videos. And, like, the commentary on that, like, this is a little bit, obviously, Dan Harmon getting very meta and very liking his writing, but I really enjoyed it. And the hubris, it is just pure hubris of how they end this show, where Abed is literally spiking the lens saying, oh, we'll be back next season, and that's canon. Like, it goes so far. That's why it's my 4. I really like it. And then my 3 is Repilot. So I know everyone else was taking their time to shit on
Not
it, which
catering
is
to
fine.
me so far on this top 5.
I know.
Dan. Can't lie.
The top 2 everyone will be back on. I like Repilot because Repilot, I think if you literally watch the pilot of the show and then you watched Repilot, I think they're almost the same episode, but you're literally taking the characters that you've already been set up for. Like, they did a really good job of taking the path of all these characters. I agree it's a little, like, convenient that all the characters happen to kind of, like, be in weird places after they've all quote-unquote graduated or moved on. But, I mean, it was also a little convenient how they all came together in the first place. But the themes of, like, doubling down with Jeff manipulating people, I also like that he's real down on his luck to start the episode. Like, I agree that they dropped the cynical Jeff kind of quick. Like, he's very cynical in this episode and then the next episode, and then they kind of get back into their hijinks. But I like that they take, because you even have Duncan and Rob Corddry have very clear parallels to where in the pilot he keeps asking Duncan for the answers, but now you have Rob Corddry, like, trying to be like, hey, like, how do I get these people to sue? And then even the dean kind of trying to be like, he's literally lost without Jeff. Yeah, I'm trying to see if and I do like that they take the opportunities to take as many digs at Scrubs as they can, just because it's really funny. Like,
it's pretty ballsy to make Donald Glover, the actor who just quit your show, deliver a line saying, how dare you leave a show that's been so good to you. That's pretty awesome.
Probably Dan Harmon working out some shit right there.
Sure.
My 2 is geothermal escapism. I think there's an argument to be said that this is, of their high concept battle episodes, you could say this is the best one because it has the most heart. I do think, I noticed from the very beginning, like, everybody, you get such a hard line on Britta's a buzzkill, but then if you literally listen to her dialogue throughout the entire episode, not only is she a badass, but everything she's saying is right. Like, she's really trying to get the entire group to be like, no, he's leaving, we need to address this. Like, she's really trying to do right by her friend, whereas Abed's like avoidance. But like Steven, you were saying you were crying at the end. I cry in the middle. When the first couple of times, like, I didn't get it, but then the more I thought about it, like, Danny gives such a heartfelt line where he's talking about, like, no, the lava's real. Like, the lava's real, and it's not real. And you can see Britta switch, too. Like, she's been a badass in fighting, and then she's like, oh, shit, no, something more is happening.
It's real for him, yeah.
That moment, like, it crushes me. I literally cry almost every time at that particular moment because it's so well done by all parties. Yeah. And then my number 1, the only thing better than that for me is the aforementioned episode is cooperative polygraphy, because I think That episode is, again, arguably the best bottle episode of the series. Whether you have Walton Goggins or Pedro Pascal, they both do such a fantastic job. And that's one of the things I love mostly about Dan Harmon's writing is like, you've created characters that you're literally sitting around a table having a conversation. You have a plot device where they're unveiling secrets about each other, but it's still enthralling. It's still super interesting. And putting the lie detector in there like makes the stakes that much higher. It didn't even really necessarily have to be about Pierce's will reading. It's just a device to get them to be in that situation. So, yeah, those are my top 5.
Wow,
That's
I
solid.
went through a lot of emotions through that. I had some hard agrees and hard disagrees.
Yeah.
Like,
That's what I'm here
Repilot? Like, I get liking what the episode's doing, but it's just, come on. Repilot?
Now, would you guys say...
Go for
it.
Because you were saying repilot. I think that, especially if you think about when it happens, you've just gone through season 4. I think that it's absolutely necessary. I think it needed to happen in order to get those characters from whatever weirdness that Dan had no control over, be like, oh no, quote unquote, I mean, I'm bring back Daddy's home. He's going to make sure.
Yeah, he is.
He's going to make sure that all these characters, yeah, it might have felt weird last season, but I'm going to repilot. I'm going to show you why you love the show to begin with and give you little sprinkles of everything else. So I think it was, for where it came, I think repilot absolutely had to happen the way it did.
I get
one
it.
of my
I like a lot. I feel like Dan distanced itself too much from season 4. I feel like, especially for how they kind of went back to the status quo a couple episodes later anyways. I feel like they made a big deal out of like the bridge collapse thing and out of a bunch of stuff that felt like it was building up the storyline. I don't know. I'm not trying to shit on your opinion.
How do you fix the school where you actually still don't want to teach and you're trying to stop them from building more bridges that kill people? Dan's very dark and bitter in season 5. And he's tired some in season 6, but he is angry in season 5, and it comes through constantly. And that's the worst part about 5 is Dan just being angry about 4.
Well, I want to ask you guys, because I feel like when we did our season 4 roundtable, there were a lot of mixed reactions to how people felt about season 5, and me going in, I kind of like remembered it fondly but was cautiously optimistic. But I think Zach and I, to project onto you once more, Zach, we both like season 5 a fair bit. I think, for me personally, I think season 5 goes right about, it's either my second or third favorite season of the show.
It's my second.
But I know that Matt, you don't feel that way about it.
It's better than what season other than 4?
I like it more than season 3.
I like it a lot more than season 3.
Because I think that season 3 maybe has a couple of has more high highs, but also way more lows. There's a stretch in season 3 that's just stinky to me that I did not have fun with.
The whole last third of season 3
has virtual system analysis.
I like that.
The last third has
we're all
virtual
talking
system
about
analysis.
a show that we
I'm
love
saying
so much,
specific
so
because
it's
I
of
know
course I
Jillian
love
thinks
season
about
3.
this.
But when
virtual
season
system
5
analysis.
When season 5 has cooperative polygraphy and the Ass Crack Bandit episode and geothermal escapism and a really great D&D episode, I don't think any season other than season 2 is better than season 5.
Here's where I am with season 5.
Yeah.
And I'm going to... Actually, you talked about season 4 going into season 5.
Yeah.
I think season 4 does some things better than season 5.
Sure.
Some of those things are having overarching story arcs that progress characters.
Sure.
Britta, Jeff, Troy, like we see multiple characters that have progression. And we can track it through everything in there. What it fails to have as great of are these high concept episodes that we came to know Community as. So it becomes hard for me because I love lots of episodes in season 5. Episodes in season 5 make it into my top 10 easy for the show. But as the season itself, if I'm looking and going, what was the story he was telling in this season? Like I said at the beginning of this, I have a hard time picking that out, whereas I haven't in the seasons before, right?
That's a fair point.
And so it's like season 5 for me is really weird because I'm like, it's got app development and it's got advanced Dungeons and Dragons and all these amazing episodes. But then who grew in this season? Jeff kind of.
It almost seems more like, when you think about it from that perspective, it seems like season 5 becomes much more about the school itself and a lot less about the individual characters.
Yeah.
And in some ways, that's why I like this season so much, because there's some really great episodes of just hanging out on the campus and seeing what the school is at large, like how it devolves into an angry mob or how it devolves into a cult. I think that's really fun to watch. But I do agree, if you're just so invested in the characters and how they grow, which for me, I love that, but that I come to Community more for the episode by episode shenanigans rather than the overarching story. Why I really like going back to season 5. I think it's a lot of fun. There are a lot of fun adventures to be had.
There are great episodes there. I'm not disagreeing with that. There are some great episodes in season 5, but I don't think it holds a candle to the first 3. I don't. I mean, I think 1 is stuck in its first 5 or 6 episodes, just establishing the main character with the rest of them. But after that, it's flying. And by the time it gets to the end, it's doing new stuff for television, period. Season 2
Sure.
does not have a match on television, in my personal opinion. Season 2 has... We talk about, the paintball a lot, and we talk about the Christmas episode that is stop motion, which works, and we occasionally completely forget they have zombies canonically in the story.
Which I think might have been when we did that season, it was either my number 2 episode, maybe behind.
Yeah, I mean it's
great.
Yeah, episode. Season 2 is just bonkers great, and season 3 has this they don't see. If you go back and read the reviews of season 3, it's like Community seems okay, but they don't seem to have what they had in season 2, and then they hit Remedial Chaos Theory, and then it's like boom. And I'll warn both of you, particularly for those who didn't like the end of season 3, as you're going through, when you get through 6 and you go back and look at your rankings and how you've ranked those latter episodes of season 3, the Greendale 3 did the same thing. It was like, what were we smoking that made us so angry with everything going on in the latter half of season 3? And it wasn't Remedial.
I love
that was a big problem.
I love it.
That's one of the things about going and doing an episode by episode thing, is because we're so in the right now. Like right now, I'm so in the end of season 5, and I enjoyed it so thoroughly that it is. I'm saying things off of just having watched that. It is hard to. There's so many episodes, and when you have 10 episodes between when you watch the last one, it's hard to keep track of all
you've got a 8-bit episode, for crying out loud, that just gets squeezed into the end. And different than Jillian, I do like the season 3 finale.
I love it.
It's probably my second favorite.
Season 3, I think I love season 3. I never know if it's 1 or 2. I have a hard time deciding between it and 2. Season 3, I do think could have benefited from a few less episodes, honestly. I love all the episodes.
That's a big part of it.
I don't think there actually is an episode in season 3 I don't like. But there are ones I could easily pull out. And it doesn't change anything.
And most of the times, the ones we can pull out are those that continue the long narrative of the story. So
That's
Contemporary Impressionists, which is nobody's top 10, it is doing something for the season-long arc. And my general argument for most people is that the episodes
do for the show? That episode sucks.
It establishes that Abed is not a perfectly good person, that he doesn't understand the real world properly.
It starts the Troy and Abed rift.
It starts a separation of it. You also establish where Jeff is emotionally going through this, because he's on medication.
Okay, that episode should be in everyone's mind for the part where he wears the aviators alone and the Dean just orgasms on them. that singularly,
it's got a ton of great things in it, but the point of it is the whole of it.
I was very Snagglepuss.
The whole of it is trying to push you through for the next episode. It's going to set you up for what's going to happen with Chang. Chang's going to have an army. That's where he meets his army. That's where he finds his backup Dean. All these little pieces that we need. And I think Advanced Gate is the same thing about the threat that Troy has with AC Repair School. That's a big part of that episode. So the episodes we don't like that much in season 3 are those that are telling a bigger story. Or part of that bigger narrative
and
story.
I think that's why season 3 ranks a little lower for me, is because I don't really like the AC Repair storyline. don't dislike it, but I don't
Just
like
admit
it.
you don't like John Goodman.
I don't dislike
Tell us
the
right.
storyline.
Surprise, surprise! Look who's in the waiting room. John, come in here. Zach thinks you suck.
I wish
Jay
that
called John.
wasn't. I just wish it wasn't stretched out as much over the season as it was. There's a little too much AC repairs for me. But let's stay on season 5. We're going off the rails. Let's talk about
What
the
did you say
MVP.
about Monsters Inc., Zach? I think John wants to know.
Let's talk about the MVP for the season, which I've been thinking about and really struggling because the season is like a Greendale season more than anyone. It's hard to pick out a through line. So Steven and I give our MVP at the end of every episode for each season, and at the end of the season we tally them all together. And based off of what me and Steven gave over the season, we gave the most to Annie.
Really?
Yeah,
can see
with
that.
second
Well,
place
because you
being
gave the
Dean.
most to Annie.
And that's what it was. I gave like 4 episodes to Annie, and Steven gave like 3.
2. Annie got 2 for me.
And then the Dean was our second place. And even that doesn't quite sound right to me. I've been wrestling
I gave the
with...
Dean the most this season, but it was because there were so many episodes where I was like, well, you know what? I didn't really... Not one person jumped out to me, so who made me laugh the most? And that was the Dean a
often
lot of
the
the
Dean.
time. Yeah, the Dean gets my season MVP, personally.
I don't feel 100% on it, but I do think I'm going to go with you just because I see this as being the Greendale season and who embodies like the spirit of Greendale more than Dean Pelton. And I do like that the season takes Dean Pelton a little bit more seriously. Season 4 really like turned him into never too offensive, but a little bit too much of like gay stereotypes and a little bit too much of dressing up every single episode. And this season they decided they were gonna make him weird in a totally different way. We start to see that he's weird because he's stupid and because he doesn't know how to do his job, not because he's like queer
It's
and
his
dresses up
whole
like a girl
identity.
sometimes.
Oh,
Yeah.
they doubled down
Hey,
on that in season 6. It's so it's like an exponent in season 6
Yeah.
from the little case you get in season 5.
Yeah, exactly. I guess I'll give it to the Dean. I don't feel 100% on it, but I don't know. It's tough. What about you guys?
I also struggled with this
It's
really
tough.
hard. I have plenty of episodes where I can think of Britta being my MVP for the episode, but I think that's just she's my favorite character, and
Sure.
I think they frequently manage to find heart in her scenes. And in part, that just is probably Gillian's fantastic acting. She plays Britta with a vulnerability to her that manages to make even things like, I know you guys all hated it, but bondage and beta male sexuality.
Yeah.
Her struggle throughout that entire
Oh, I
episode.
mean, she's not the problem.
Yeah,
with
Britta's
that
far
episode.
from
I
She's
know,
great
I
in
know.
that
I
episode.
totally know that she's not the problem.
Yeah,
but
I agree
but like
with
that
you.
moment, right? It's where we're finding these moments of like human struggle through Britta, and then juxtaposition that with her becoming the mother of ones and shoving mustard on her face.
They did a good job this season with making me upset less frequently about how they're pushing down on Britta. They still do it to an extent, but it feels like they have other jokes to tell with that character than that we...
It's never as bad as it was in season 3.
Yeah.
Season 3, it got really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
She's
it
a
was
punching
nice-
bag, yeah.
Yeah. And so it was nice to have a balance to that. I like Hickey, and he's
too.
just a new, fresh thing that I was able to dissect and pull out and find moments in, and even like funny things like him trying to win the lava so that way he can pay for his gay
Pay for his
son's
gay
wedding.
son's wedding.
Mad Max Hickey is an icon.
But I had and Duncan's back, and I love him, and John Oliver delivers everything wonderfully. I had a really hard time. It's so cast ensemble this season. It's so
It's
cast
tough,
ensemble.
and it's been kind of easy the other seasons. There have been seasons where it felt pretty clearly Abed. There have been seasons where it felt, to us at least, it felt pretty clearly Troy. Or it's easy to like ground the heart of the group in someone. I don't know what it is. Did you say one?
Yeah.
Can you not decide?
I can't. My MVP of the season, yeah. I mean, I can't really decide. Maybe Abed. I mentioned 4 people. I've been thinking about this since you asked us this question.
It's
And
never been this hard for me to figure it out either. I'm with you.
I've always known, and I don't.
Yeah.
I don't, because like because nobody's story am I like, this is the great story of this season, and everybody has great reads.
I'll take a little bit just to build off what you were saying. The only reason I think, and I want to push back on Matt just because he was shitting on Hickey so much earlier. It's only because I think Hickey is, to me, is absolutely necessary, because you got rid of Pierce, and only because Pierce was a certain, I don't want to say, they definitely could have explored more with him, but I liked Hickey coming in as in, like, there weren't, about his character, there were no questions. He was an absolute. Basically, when he came on screen, that was his character. Like, as soon as they introduce him in Intro to Teaching, that's just who he is. Like, from the rations to, like, he very clearly is a very specific type of character. And the reason he would be, if I'm picking one singular MVP character, it would be him, is
I'm
because...
all for that.
Oh my God.
I'll tell you.
Go ahead,
because,
but oh my God.
Hey, I am old enough. You don't have to adopt me. Talk about these two.
Yeah. Don't. Oh no. All right, that's off the table.
Me and you have just gotten disowned because we mentioned Hickey.
Age has
Exactly.
nothing to do with
But it's because, so that's what
After
it is.
all I've done for you.
It's the dynamics, though. So, like, you had Pierce be a villain, you had him be a sympathetic character, but he was pliable. You could kind of put Pierce into whatever you needed him to be. I like Hickey because he's not that way. Whatever situation you're putting Hickey in, he's still Hickey. There's a reason the entire time in Meow Meow Beans he keeps saying it's my birthday, because he's found one thing and
It's
sticking
my
with
birth-
that thing that works.
I love that character. It's fun. It's so fun to see him put in situations like that. It's so fun to see him, especially in the Dungeons and Dragons episode, going from, I don't know, him being able to engage through, like, his narrow understanding of the game,
and
then
has
how
to
he
try.
Yeah,
that's the interesting part about that episode, is he starts off not taking it seriously. He screws over his party, and you actually lose a member of the party because he can't wrap his head around it and learn. And even the little baby steps he's able to do by the end, you can still see him battling with himself, that he's like, oh, okay, well, we're going to be trying to take down the necromancer together, but like, he's learned, even if it's a slight, even if, like, that's why I like Hickey, because you kind of have to, it's like trying to move a boulder. Like,
even when he
have to,
learns,
like,
he's pretty dead set in his ways, and I think
Nothing
Hickey's a good
about
choice.
him feels off the wall.
Well,
Nothing about him feels off the wall. Every reveal we get, I go, yeah,
You're like,
makes
that
sense.
tracks.
Yeah.
And like,
Jim the
whereas
Duck. Yep.
these high concept things like geothermal escapism and app development and condiments and things like that, where everybody else gets so wrapped up in it, like they get Greendaled, we're buying in, we're doing stuff. He's there, but like he's there and still feels fully himself, which I respect a lot.
There's so many theater kids that podcast about Community. I think that's the ultimate thing for me. I just
What does
don't
that have to do with
see it.
Hickey?
Yeah, go
Well,
ahead. I was the
because
theater
he
kid.
doesn't.
Continue.
He doesn't add. Here's my alternative.
Okay.
You could have a Muppet in the second episode. One of the other cast members be actually in need of education, and that makes that entire story. And the whole idea of recovering this college, where you actually helping the kids for their future life, that's a better story. You could replace him in pneumonistics with Kikowski. You could. He's not even in polygraphy, so it's irrelevant. You could have the Muppets working together, and then Britta become the leader of the Muppets for geothermal. You could have Shirley and Cork based, because that's somebody that Abed would not cross ultimately.
True.
So
I
she
actually
could
like
teach
him
him a
in
lesson being
Cork-based.
an adult, and we get more Shirley. I don't see where the problem is. You could have the dean in the bondage thing, have him being responsible. I made a list. I really did.
I can tell.
Anybody could have done his bit in app development. Anybody with rope could have done his bit in VCR.
Yeah, but it
I don't have a solution for advanced D&D. I just don't have one. Anybody could have done his bit for G.I.
So-
Jeff. You could
wait,
have Leonard break his
Matt, I
hip
have a
or
question.
whatever. So
have a
that
question.
doesn't work.
You-
You could have
you were
anybody
just
for him in
replacing
Basic Story.
him.
You could have anybody in for him Basic Sandwich.
You
He does not add. He takes away from our main cast. That is my biggest complaint about season 5. Other than what Jillian said is that it's not a season. It's not a story that starts to finish and tells you something, except for Jeff. And if I'm going to pick an MVP, Hickey's the last one on my list. I would put Leonard over him.
I thought you were gonna
I
go
would
with Hickey. I thought-
100% choose
That's a
Annie
turn
because
off.
you have to believe every version of her that's in this season, and there's
Yeah.
like 5 of them.
And I feel like
and that's
you do
that's the
believe
main
them.
reason I think she's the MVP.
She does
Yeah,
a
I
lot,
think Annie does have a pretty good season because they grow her up a little bit this year.
I don't think she has a good season. I think she just does a better job than anybody else of pulling off what she has to pull off. I think because she's got to be a drug rep, and she used to be a drug person with drug problems. She
And
has
they
to be a
point it
drug
out.
rep,
Mhm.
and then she has to be a person who gets on to her friend about teaching, and then she has to be a detective, and then she has to be a number 4 and very happy in her role at number 4. And they do have better outfits than the rest of them. I'll give Jillian that. And then she has to be somebody who's willing to sell out everything else to get her cork boards up, even though it'll hurt the people who are getting the cork boards. It has to learn that lesson. You have to have her play the schoolgirl and make it believable. That whole bit of them dancing they were doing that behind Jay while he was filming. And he said, "I'm just going to turn the camera around and pick that up." That's those people. So I think Annie's the MVP because the character has to do so many different things that are kind of unbelievable.
It is definitely like
a
her
valid
co-leading.
I want to
season
change
with
my
Jeff.
mind to
Wow,
Annie before we move on and wrap this thing up because every episode.
Jillian's having a thought, and I want to hear it.
I'm not having a thought. I am surprised. I frequently, unless Annie was in a storyline, which was like 3 episodes this season, felt like Annie was barely affecting the stories at all.
Well, I feel like every single
agree.
episode starts off with Annie being like, "All right, guys, this is what we're doing."
Well, that
this
just
week.
makes her
This
the
is
dean in
star
every
we're
other
putting
season,
on the
though. Does
wall."
that make her the MVP forever?
But I think
Yeah.
I'm losing track of what we're arguing about.
No, I'm not arguing. It's
Not you,
just
Steven.
interesting. It's interesting because like they can that's cool that it's just interesting because for me I have felt like Annie has been lost for a lot of season
And
5.
my argument about MVP is not that she's the most valuable person in as regard to each episode. She's the most valuable person doing her job. She is nailing what she has to do each time, and it's all over the map.
Yeah.
It's me still complaining about season 5, the second worst season of Community.
Now it's recorded. Now it's canon.
I've said it at least twice, maybe 3 times. Yeah.
Or alternatively, the second best season of Community.
Ooh.
Wait
It all
till you
depends
finish
on how you
6
look at
and
it.
look back. I think 3 gets better. I think that's what happens to most people, and I'm interested when y'all get there.
Just briefly looking at the summaries of the stories for the season, I think Annie really only isn't involved in the A story in a handful. Like Polygraphy's everybody, but she's definitely front and center in Repilot, in Intro to Teaching, in Ass Crack Bandit. Geothermal, she's not front and center. Cork Base, definitely front and center. Bondage and Beta Male, no, she's definitely in the back in that one.
She
App
leaves
Development.
early with Shirley. That's
Yeah.
how early she leaves the episode.
Oh yeah,
She was
there's
with
one
Shirley.
scene in that
Well,
episode
you know
where
when
Annie
she's
and
tied
in
Shirley
with
are like,
Shirley, she's not gonna
"You
be
want to
in
walk off camera and not be in this episode? Sure,
Yeah,
let's
kind
go
of
over
what
go
they
to
do.
there."
McDonald's.
Yeah.
Or we're halfway through. I'll go through real quick. App Development, she's solidly in the middle. It's not really about her. VCR, huge in Pile
Yeah.
of Bullets. Advanced D&D, kind of in the middle like everybody. GI Jeff, I would say she's maybe 2 after Jeff because they talk about Tight Chip a whole lot.
I don't know, Abed. I think Abed's probably your number 2 there.
Oh, and Fourth Wall.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
she doesn't like affect anything in GI Jeff,
yeah.
but
And then it comes back to the last 2 to Story and Sandwich where you have the whole,
Yeah.
like you said,
Yeah.
brought up, bringing back Jeff and Annie and all
Yeah.
of that and her basically reacting to those 2 being gross and toxic.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
My dream season 5, Shirley's more important. And
I was
she'd be in
actually-
this conversation for all of us, but she
Matt,
can't
that
be
was
because she wasn't used.
behind the scenes question because you might know this. Was Yvette already dealing with stuff with her dad?
I don't know. That's
'Cause
never
that was-
been set out loud.
I don't think she was less
Probably-
involved with the show like intentionally this season.
That
for
was
sure.
well. That was
If
my
you-
only question because
if
she
you look
felt
at the
very
script,
nerfed.
if you look at the amount she talks,
It's a lot less.
it's 5's pretty bad. 4 is way more. Four's
Yeah.
up
They
to
lean on
season
her
1
for it.
level.
Nothing's more disappointing than literally her last moment as a series regular is
Oh
her
my
and Hickey
God.
at the end of the season finale, and she
Oh,
doesn't
he has
even
a line.
speak. She like coos at him while he like makes the joke about being thought.
I really
robbed.
thought of hang gliders. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which
disappointing.
is a good callback, but yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
It is a funny
That
joke, but
anybody
it's sad
could
to
have
see.
made.
Sad to see that Shirley had to go that way.
I'm not going to
It's-
open the can of worms again.
Yeah, guys, I think
let's
it's
move
time
on.
to close the can of worms. I think it's time to wrap this thing up because we've all gotten hot and bothered about all kinds of things. Everybody's had takes that I've loved, and everyone's had takes that I've very much disagreed.
I've got to start
I was
preparing
not
my
expecting
flower
Papa to get so
arrangement to
angry
Matt
about
to
Hickey in
make
this.
up
That was
for-
not on my bingo card.
Okay.
What, Steven? What did you say?
I'm
He
going to
came
start working on
prepared.
my
It's-
flower arrangement and heartfelt apology
That's the closest
letter.
you've ever been to kids because it's exasperation sound. So yeah.
When Papa's perturbed with his precious
Oh my gosh.
playthings, it's time to shut down the show for the evening.
Yeah, and when Steven starts stretching for the peas,
Yeah.
it's also time to wrap this
I
thing
couldn't
up.
think of a word that meant sons that I love that started with P. So
Yeah, we don't have a lot of experience in that. We don't have a lot of words at our disposal. To describe
Paternal
that.
love.
Whoa!
Not familiar with
There's
the
something there.
concept.
We can get there.
Everybody, before we wrap
Hence,
this thing up,
they're not used to it. Yeah, they don't know this word. Paternal's not something that comes up. So
We're gonna
Burn
real
for
dark,
day.
aren't we?
From the hottest Papa around.
I have played some of your introductions where you two are being super creepy
Yeah.
about our relationship for my actual son. And he
you're
thinks
like, why
that-
don't you love me like
and
this?
he thinks it's hilarious.
Yeah.
He liked that. He thought it was, number one, that was weird, and he also kept listening and thought it was hilarious. So
Well, let's wrap this up by each of you guys telling us a little bit about what you've got going on, where people can find you, and what to look out for. Whoever wants to popcorn first.
I'm the least valuable in this category, so I am doing nothing but tweeting. I have nothing planned but tweeting. I'm at
What about
Communiess.
interviews? Are you going to
We're
be
at
doing
25K.
any more interviews over for 6 seasons of the podcast? Anything
There's
to
only
talk about?
one person left that I know that I've talked to about interviewing the past year.
Cool.
That one of the writers that hasn't been interviewed at all, really. So I may check up on that, but that's as far as I can think of right now. It's just for various reasons, it's kind of a hard task to do, and then you do all the work, and it's a lot. Yeah, because. Thank God for Dan, because what happened was I had a plan with somebody else, and their schedule made it where they couldn't be there on Thursday, and our meeting went to Thursday, and because Dan had sent me the message, I was able to go, hey, where you volunteered, and I told you there was no chance in hell, hell is turned around.
True story.
Is that what
Yeah,
you said?
so-
You're like, yeah, thanks for the...
yeah, I
thanks
said
for
it was.
the-
I tried to
No
frame it as
way.
like, I don't know how to tell you this, but I've been playing this for 6 months.
I was a
can't-
pinch hitter.
Yeah. He sent me an email like the week before, and I'm like, dude, I've been talking to somebody about this since December.
Yep.
But yeah, no, that worked out great. It was a lot of fun. And so, no, I don't have anything currently planned. I don't know what we're going to do in the next year. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to have at least 2 podcasters end it in the next year talking about my favorite show that were a part of the original core group. And I am not going to be happy when all that happens. I'm going to miss both Welcome to Greendale, and I will miss Zach and Stevens. You can't miss you can't disappoint.
You're
a podcast.
on it right now, and you don't know.
Yeah. I'm going to miss it. Not just because I'll miss listening to you. I'm going to miss talking to you on a regular basis about this thing, and so that's the worst part. That's my next year sucks because I'm losing 2 more, possibly 3 if Jen gets through. So yeah, that's the worst part. I appreciate Apartment 303 being thematic, so they don't have to stop after episodes. But
Delta
for the rest
cubes
of you,
will never die. Delta cubes will never die.
for the rest of you, I love you for what you do. I do, and I really appreciate it. Y'all are making stuff that the fandom likes and appreciates and keeps us talking. And I love my hobby, and I love that you provide stuff for the people that I care about, and that includes y'all. So thank you.
And we hope it / know that you know how much we appreciate what you do, in that even just from how many listeners each of our shows have, just because you share them with people.
Yeah.
Oh, seriously.
Which is incredible. From when
Yeah.
just starting and having that support system has been all you could ask for when
You
trying
just
to do
need to be
something like
heard.
this.
Y'all
Yeah.
just need to be heard. We're just conduits. So happy to be there.
We just need you to get really into whatever show we do next, so
Yeah.
you can retweet us on another account.
I can't get into another
you can
show.
get really
I
into
can't do
it.
He
it.
said, I don't
Will and
have the
Grace.
time
Will and
or
Grace
the brain
podcast.
capacity.
Everything
to
else I
become-
watch is like in 5 minutes. Boom, I'm done. I can't watch the rest of it. I started so many things that I can't finish.
Luckily for you, our next show is going to be Quibi Original.
Hope you got a Roku.
Dan, what you've got going on over at Apartment 303? What can the people look there for?
we are still, the brackets are up. I think we put out one of those a month for the last couple of months. So we have recording coming up. I'm not sure what we're going to be doing then. I know we have an interview or two. Nobody is like fancy in the show. I think we were going to be talking to a slash film critic. I don't want to say their name because I don't know when and if that'd be happening. You can find me online. I'm like Matt. I think that's one of the reasons why we talk all the time is because I'm like him. I'm on Twitter way too much. So I have that. I have another podcast that's kind of on a hiatus called Ramble On About Movies. So
Cool.
I am available to talk about things on the internet. That's what I like to do. I like talking pop culture and movies, and obviously Community. I have a bunch of other shows too. But yeah, find me at Oh Hi Dan Nye.
And he has that rich voice. That
This is a good voice.
It's great.
You do have a very good podcast.
that
very good.
TikTok and
Thank you.
mahogany kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
And Jillian, I
Many
gotta ask
leather-bound
you,
books.
you're in the same boat as us, where before you know it, you'll be wrapping up Community. Are there thoughts of what that's gonna mean for y'all? Are there thoughts for the future?
Yeah, so for the listeners who maybe don't know, Welcome to Greendale is me and my husband taking one of our friends who had never watched or really knew anything about Community through an episode at a time. So we've been shielding her from spoilers since 2019. She's very excited that she will soon be able to actually interact with all of you. Because
It'll be great to meet her
We-
one of these times. Yeah.
it'll be great whenever I can actually invite her along to things. So we will be wrapping up in season 6 this year, or whenever we end season 6. We'll see how long it takes us to get to there. And we have an idea for a podcast that we think we want to do after, that was inspired by one of the season 5 episodes of Community.
G.I.
But
Joe.
I'll tell you guys off air, but everybody else, you can follow us at Go Greendale on Twitter and at Welcome to Greendale Podcast on Instagram if you would like to A, listen to our show, or B, be like, what the heck kind of thing what in season 5 inspired a whole different podcast?
I know what it is. I think you told me before. I remember now.
I told you.
It's pretty
yeah.
cool.
Welcome to the Fat Dog Cast, where we just talk about a big old fat dog the whole time.
Fat dogs every week. We're going to show a picture and talk about how fluffy its butt is.
Its
Endless
resemblance to a
content.
bear.
Boop snoot ratings. Yeah, I can see this.
I'd
Okay.
listen.
Well, let's wrap this thing up. It was great having you guys all here to talk about it. It's always, when you take the lid off the jar, talking about anything Community with any gathering of any of the Community podcasters is always a great time, and it's always a heavy time because we've all got those opinions we got to get out. And I hope the people out there listening have had fun. Make sure you check out all of these people's projects. Make sure you follow them all on social media. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thanks again so much, guys, for joining us. Matt,
Thank
you.
you.
you're kind of stuck with us these days, but Dan, Jillian, it was great to have you
Thank you
for the first time
having
in
us.
our little whatever
So
you
much
want to
fun.
call this. But thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah,
All
thanks
right.
for the
Thank you.
invite.
Thanks, guys.
You feel like we did it? Do you feel like we successfully tucked season 5 in, gave it a warm cup of cocoa, let it take a couple puffs off of Daddy's tobacco pipe, and let it just drift off into nightmare ravaged sleep? I think we've done it. Do you?
Season 5's had a couple sips of Mommy's special juice. It stayed up a little
I
late
don't
to
know.
watch a little TV that it wasn't
Yeah.
supposed to. It got its nightly little rub-a-dub-dub from us. And you know what, Zach? I think that it's ready to drift off to,
No, you dug this hole.
I think it's ready to drift off to a alcohol and drug-fueled child's nightmare.
So am I too, because it's been a long night of fun with Community friends, and I'm ready to send this thing off. So before we do,
Did we
next
just
week-
describe G.I. Jeff?
I don't know. Did we?
Yeah.
Well, next week
You'll
we're
see it in
gonna-
post, don't
Okay,
worry.
I'll see it in post. I'll CGI it in. It'll make sense.
CGI Jeff.
Yeah, I'll just replace
That's-
what's his name? I'll just replace the
Hickey.
oh, fuck. No, I'll replace now my bit's not gonna work because it took too long. The comedian that got canceled. I'll replace
Louis C.K.
No, the
Bill
Eminem
Cosby.
rapper guy.
Marshall
the-
Mathers.
No, Forget it. Next week, we're going to be back to start season 6 of the final season of Community with its first episode, Ladders. So if you want to be a part of that, be sure to send in your trivia, your episode MVP, and your favorite funny moment from Ladders to can'tdisappointpodcast@gmail.com, and we will gladly feature it on next week's show. In the meantime, Steven, where can the people find us? Wait! Don't say a goddamn word. If you like what we do here and you want to push it forward, patreon.com/can'tdisappointpodcast is the place to do it. It's the place to support this show, get more content out of us, and help us usher in the next era of whatever comes for the Can't Disappoint crew. Don't say a goddamn word because why? You're wanting.
I
me
need you to feed.
And
Come on.
Steven, now it's your turn. Where else can the people find us?
Glad you asked, Zach. If you want
You made
to
me.
ride our round table and
Yeah.
stick your sword in our stone, you can pull it on out and walk on over to twitter.com and follow us over at Can't Disappoint Podcast.
No.
Just kidding. Over at You Can't Disappoint.
Jesus.
We're also on Instagram under the name at Can't Disappoint Podcast. We're on Facebook and YouTube, double duty. You can go follow us, subscribe, like, just absolutely destroy that button, whichever one it is for you.
Krista Aaliyah. I was talking about Krista Aaliyah.
Oh.
You could replace Krista Aaliyah with Tig Notaro like they did in that one movie. Do you know about that? That's what I was making a reference to.
No. What do you do with an Eminem rapper? When you said Eminem rapper, I thought you meant
was
the
the
rapper
guy that
Eminem.
did like the.
Oh.
Yeah, the Porsche with the Porsche. He's the guy that did that and that also groomed a bunch of people on Snapchat.
Yeah.
He was in.
In the show didn't he like play a guy that was grooming a little girl?
There's this really great video of him on a podcast, and they're like, yeah. So when people like save a Snapchat, and he's like, you can save a Snapchat. I'm like, well, yeah, you can like do this and this, and it like zooms in on him, and he's like. But he was in a movie called Army of the Dead, and he got kicked out of it, and they replaced him with Tig Notaro. Anyway, from inside the Dreamatorium,
I didn't give the
okay.
name of where to find us on YouTube and Facebook, Zachary.
Nobody-
For those out there who are only on YouTube and Facebook,
figure
looking
it
at
out.
you, our more mature
If
audience.
they are only on YouTube and Facebook, then they already know how to have found us there.
The whole name of the show, You Can't Disappoint a Podcast.
What did Community Papa
He's like, you can't.
miss? He was like,
You can't miss a.
He was on it now, and he didn't know what it was called.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, as we end every show by saying good night, West Virginia. Have a blessed sleep, and don't let the dust bunnies bite.
Don't let
I'm
the
Zach.
people wanting to secede from the Union in 2022 bite.
Good
And I'm
night,
Steven.
Topeka, Kansas.
This one's for you.
This is why we
Boise,
don't podcast
Idaho.
after 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Good night,
Bye.
everybody.
Oh my God, what's happening?